Hello everybody and welcome to Gabbit Media. I'm Grant Abbott and today I'm going to be looking at the competition entries. The title of the competition was Historic and I'm going to be giving a bit of an artistic review. Someone suggested actually that I should call it an artistic review rather than competition winners and so forth. So maybe I'll do that, we'll see. Wait, well you've already seen the title, haven't you? You've seen the video, but I haven't seen the title yet, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Anyway, it's to go up on the wall. That's the aim of the competition, to be a winner and get up on the wall. No, it's not the aim of the competition. The aim of the competition is to have fun and learn and be part of the community. Anyway, let's take a look at your entries. I thought I'd bring myself down to the bottom corner of the screen so I could do weird things like hand gestures and talk at someone rather than at the screen. Anyway, let's have a look at what we've got. We've got Bieber marking the beginning of the competition, thank you for that. And I love this beautiful emoji here. That's just wonderful. It's my favourite thing out of the whole entries. Of course not. Anyway, Scholars33, we've got this beautiful looking world and an astronaut and probably the moon, seeing as that is the Earth, so it's most likely the moon, unless it's a meteor that's arrived and he's been sent there to blow it up, and he's saying, or maybe he's pointing at, who knows, what am I talking about? It's supposed to be historic, so it can't be a meteor. There's no meteor in history. Anyway, I think this is brilliant. I really like this. I like the sort of shadow, the use of light. The bit that lets it down for me is the front bit here, which we're assuming is the moon, of course. But you can't really get a shot like that on the moon. It would kind of be impossible, I think, angle-wise, to angle your camera without the moon going off into the distance. Hopefully I'm making sense, but it's sort of lost its perspective unless this was really shallow. It's the angle just doesn't work in terms of the camera. So a good idea is to actually sort of do a bit of a globe here and make your astronaut really tiny, but then it would be really small. But yeah, hopefully you can figure out what I'm saying. I'm not making much sense this morning, and this is the first one. This doesn't bode well, but a really nice piece. I love the style and I love the look, the lighting, and the overall feel of it is fantastic. Well done. Let's come off there. Ricardo KX perhaps, and this is the Temple of San Pedro in Vatican. This is a bit old, but well, it is historic, isn't it? But is a project that I think will fit in right here. Also, an old piece of work, perhaps, that's fine. Yeah, so let's have a look, a closer look. Very nice, wonderfully worked piece. Good materials. What are these? Oh, so these are actually windows, aren't they? They look like vents, sort of more modern vents. So perhaps the materials there are going a bit wrong, in my opinion. There's something strange about the floor as well. So it sort of slopes upwards then across, and it moves around a bit here. And or is it just the shadow? But this does seem to slope upwards and then across. Maybe it. Yeah. So there's something not quite right about the floor. Again, it may just be my interpretation of the piece, but it looks like there's a shadow that's sort of wobbly around the bottom here. And that kind of lets the piece down a little bit. I like the lighting. That's really nice coming from this direction. These statues are really great, and I feel like they need to be highlighted more, so we need to sort of come in a bit closer because it looks really great. But these bits around the outside don't look as good in my opinion. Nice work though, well done. So this is from Demeter Zephyr Animations. I'm liking it's the Ford Mustang, the first ever Ford Mustang to feature 700 or over 700 horsepower, the GT500. So let's take a look. Very nice model. Yep, looks really good. Let's have a look at the other view. Yep, that's fantastic. Really nice model. The thing I'm not so keen on is the sort of low poly look. And I think that's just a stylistic thing. Yes, because it works, doesn't it? But it's neither low poly or high poly. It's sort of in between. It's a mid poly. It's a new style, and that because it's neither one or the other, it doesn't quite feel right to me. But that maybe I'm being overly harsh. But I'd rather see sort of smooth shading and a realistic attempt, or a low poly that's really stylized. I'm probably being overly harsh here because it's a really great model. A lot of time and effort gone into this, and it looks really good. So well done. Yeah, well done. Let's keep going. There's a nice 2D one here from Aaron 16.1. Yep, that's very good indeed. Very vivid colours in the background. We've got sort of very sort of grey, washed out colours here, and then very vivid in the background, which could just be a style thing, but generally speaking it's the opposite way. It should be the opposite way around, where you have more saturated and darker colours in the foreground and then lighter colours in the background. So we've got this sort of switched perspective thing going on. I like the setup in terms of they're sort of high-fiving. I'm assuming they're sort of high-fiving in front of the atom bomb, and yes, sort of very political this, but quite a clever way of constructing. Nicely drawn figures, really well done. Yeah, perhaps on the explosion, I like the shape of it, but I don't like the texture of it. So maybe a bit of work there. I'm trying to be a bit more critical. I hope people don't mind, but people have suggested that I'm too nice. So, like I say, I'm trying to take them apart a bit more. So hopefully I'm not being overcritical to people. There's some nice work already. So this is Tassos V, and this is Edward R. Moreau, who owns the patent on this vaccine. Oh, sorry. Who owns the patent on this vaccine? And then Jonas Salk, well, the people, I would say. There is no patent. Could you paint in the sun? Okay, sorry, I misunderstood that this was a conversation and I was just reading it. Oh dear. No, I'm not very good at this, am I? Right, so I assume this is Jonas Salk then. Now this is interesting because it's a nice piece. I'm confused as the halo. So because obviously that's sort of like a style, isn't it, from sort of sculpting in a way, actually, where they have a sort of halo around them like this, and it's a tricky one because one sense we're realistic, and then we've got this sort of artistic halo, or is it a light in the background? So I'm a bit thrown by that. I don't know, but that might just be me. And the background is a little weak in terms of compared to the character. The character is very strong, but the background is sort of put in afterwards. And you could even have a picture in the background, really, in this sense, because your main focus is the model, so you don't need to worry about the chairs and all these sort of things. But it's a good practice to do it. It looks a bit like a stock model, so it's very sort of gamey looking, low poly. The materials are quite low poly to sort of work on any system, so it's got that feel about it. I don't know whether this is maybe a stock model that you're sort of borrowing and then the background is more from you. If you model it yourself, it's very good, but a bit more time spent on the textures, because the bump is very bumpy skin. Very hard to do though, but that would be the next step, in my opinion. Yeah, very nice piece though, well done. Liram, what have we got here? What have we got here? It's a very popular one. Let's just have another look at this. Love it. And yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. That is pretty scary. So historic, how is this historic? This is, yeah, how is this historic? I don't know. I was thinking maybe it looked a bit like a Gremlin at first. Have you written anything, Liram? No, you haven't. Okay, I was thinking maybe it's a Gremlin, so the Gremlin's the film, and therefore a historic piece in that sense. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling to see how this is historic. Anyway, I'm liking it though. It's a good piece, a great model. The hair's a bit rough, so maybe shorter hair in here. Hair's really tough though. It's really tough, so I'm not going to dwell on that. The bikini doesn't fit particularly well. And the model itself is really nice. I like the textures, and the posture's very good. Yep, it's nice work. I don't like the textures in the background though. They're not quite working for me, and it's very uniform on the wood in the background. I mean, that's kind of a minor thing. Maybe a bit of work on the lighting, I think, because we've got the lights in the background, that's fine. But maybe a bit more focus here. So just actually, that's a tough one. Maybe the back lighting here is the wrong place for the lights. That's just my question anyway. Something to think about. Nice work though, Liam. I'm still not sure how it's historic. Anyway, Philippe Le Pilot, I think that. No, it's Philippe. I've said this before and I've got it wrong before, and then I got it right. No, it's Philippe, isn't it? Philippe, of course it is, because it's French. Yeah. Anyway, that's more my struggle, is getting names right rather than looking at artwork. This is very nice. There we go. So the moon sort of goes off into the distance in this one, so it makes a bit more sense. Although we need to go further into the distance, I think, because it's like a cliff edge rather than a slow slope to nothing. It's because the moon has more sort of distance on it. It's much bigger than this. It's what I'm trying to say with these things, but I'm not getting them out. I like the footprint is really nicely made. That's really great, isn't it? And that's not an easy thing to do. Yeah, I like that. Really nice. This is a little bit blobby. It's one of my favourite words, blobby. But it looks like it's been sculpted. And for hard surface modelling, you're better off not sculpting. You're better off modelling, really. It makes things blobby. And yeah, so it needs a bit of work there. I think the landing gear is much bigger than this as well. I could be completely wrong, but either this footprint is really massive or the landing gear is really small. So looking at your sizes and references in detail would be a good idea. Nice piece though. The Earth's looking nice in the background. That's lovely. And well done as well, because the light's coming from here and the light's coming from here. Lots of people get those sort of things wrong there. They take a picture in the back and put it into the background and then forget to mimic the lighting in the rest of the scene. So well done. Philippe. Sorry about getting your name wrong again. So here we've got Sputnik from Kitty Cat Candy. That's nice, isn't it? Yep. Works really well. It's a nice sort of simplistic model in a sense, but it's working really nicely. It's a great composition. Yeah, it's lovely, really. A few more samples might be good. I mean, in a weird way, the noise is kind of working to make it look more realistic. So that's quite a good thing, really. But I feel... yeah, what am I saying? Is that a good thing to have noise in? Does it work? It sort of... It doesn't react... Cycle's noise, in a sense, doesn't react in the same way as camera noise. So to make it look more realistic, yeah, you have to take out the noise really, and then add it in afterwards if you want to do a sort of camera noise. You kind of need a bit more atmosphere on the edge of your world as well. I believe, from reference images of the Earth from space stations and stuff, I think there's sort of a layer, an atmospheric layer that's needed, and maybe a bit more reflection in the world as well. From that atmospheric layer, you get a lot of reflection. So that's the only thing that lets it down. The Sputnik model looks really great, and I love the materials on that. Very nice. Well done. So we've got Scourge, looking good. German PZKPFW38 brackets T, and the Polish tank, the TKS. And a special thanks to Demeter for the HDR lighting. Yes, it makes a big difference. In your low poly scenes, you want to be lighting them with an HDR in the background. It helps. It gives it a nice soft which this doesn't seem to have. It gives it a nice soft look and feel. But this is quite hard light actually, which is strange. I would prefer a softer, maybe you've got another light that's giving it these hard shadows. They feel a bit too hard. That's the thing about low poly, because it's so blocky and the lines are so straight and harsh. I feel the better low poly pieces are ones that have soft lighting, so the shadows break up that hard edge feel, because this feels very chunky and blocky and sharp, and it's got no softness except slightly in the textures. So something to think about anyway. It's a really, really lovely piece. There's lots of detail, nice construction. It's the colours for me. They're a bit too vivid, so they're really in your face, and then you don't know what to focus on. So if you look at this, you're kind of distracted by everything, and your eyes tend to go to the bright spots in the image. And strangely, I go up here where the sky is, and it's almost like I'm looking for relief. My eyes sort of instantly go up there looking for a bit of relief. This probably is the brightest area of the image as well, and then I sort of slowly come down here across here, but I'm jumping then around the place. So try and guide the viewer. It is good construction in terms of the rule of thirds and maybe even the Hibbert spiral, but the Hibbert spiral you should sort of start off and go in. It is the Hibbert spiral, isn't it? I always get my words wrong when I'm on camera. So thinking about those sort of things, softening it up a bit, desaturating the colours. The grass looks extremely green and maybe a bit less saturated, and then maybe lastly, which doesn't always work, but maybe just a tiny bit of fog to give it a bit of haze in the background, so we can go off into the distance, because it looks like this bit is the same distance as this bit because of that saturation and quality. It's really focusing on the bad points, because there's loads of good points here. Absolutely brilliant models, absolutely love them. Weirdly, I like these little features like the bottle, the bucket. I mean, obviously the sizes are a bit weird, because that's a massive bottle and that's a massive bucket and pump here. If that's a tank, because how is a person going to fit in there? But that's sort of artistic license in a sense. And these trees are hugely chunky, but again, that's a style, so that's cool. The models are really brilliant, and actually I like the colours, but I don't like the distance aspect to it. Excellent work, really nice. A contender certainly. We've had some really. The quality seems to be getting better. So are we getting better as a community? I don't know. Anyway, Kazuyugen? Have we had Kazuyugen before? Anyway, my poor NVIDIA GTX 560 Ti crashed 4 times. Almost 9 years. I had to reduce the faces from 1.5 million, which is quite a lot really, to about 700,000. Still too much. Anyway, let's have a look. Romantic probably, Glorietto, I don't know what that is actually, and an old Prince/King Ghost. Yes, very nice. Nice construction. It's got that nice symmetry about it, although this is sort of pointing that direction. I'd want to bring the camera around to the front a tiny bit, but if you're going for that very symmetrical look, which you are, it's interesting that there's so many faces. I suppose in here there's probably a lot of faces, but it's quite far away from the camera, so you could probably have reduced that a fair bit and still gotten away with it. These bits are quite flat. I'm being overly critical because it's a very nice piece, and our edge here is very sharp. These edges are nice, but then we've got very, very sharp edges here, and that's the only minor thing about it is the edges. There's some really sharp ones, and then a sort of very soft one here, and that's about the right softness. That's the classic in terms of when you're going for realism, is your beveled edges. How soft are they? How hard are they? And that's often determined about how realistic it is. So it's a difficult one to get right, and sometimes it's even worth adding a tiny bit of bump so that it breaks up your edge really slightly. Even go as far as to sort of put extra vertices and then move them just slightly, so it breaks up that really hard edge, especially when you've got such hard light like this. It really highlights sharp edges, so watch out for that. As a model though, really great, really nice design, and interesting to have a sort of ghost of a king in the middle there. I suppose that's a good idea though, because you want to focus in the middle. I think I would have preferred a statue of some description rather than a ghost, but that's just a preference. Really nice work, once again, some brilliant stuff. So now we've got yes sir. I'm assuming that's sort of a play on yes sir, yes sir. Anyway, let's not dwell on that. This is nice as well, very good. A very wide angle camera used to give a sort of distorted perspective, and that's an interesting idea. I'm not sure I like it. I am being a bit harsher today. What's happened to me? It's the new me, the harsh me. Everybody's going to hate me. I feel like when you're doing a landscape, it's rare to use sort of such a wide angle unless you're really close into things. I'm sort of thinking about it. Is that fair? Is that fair? It seems to be making lots of things very fat at the bottom, and then gives it an over roundness. Maybe I might be going a bit over harsh here. It looks a nice piece though. Our palm here is a little bit flat because we've got shadows coming from the sun here, and they're sort of quite hard shadows, and then we've got no shadow on the trunk there. So this is obviously a flat cutout, which is good to use. But in this case, you need to go to your cutout and paint on some shadows to help it along a little bit. And you can tell it as well, it's a tiny bit different in terms of its blurriness to the background here. So it sort of looks very tiny bit out of focus, whereas this is all very sharp. So maybe thinking about the depth of field a touch would be good. Nice materials, very nice materials. I think they're really good. Maybe a little bit over the top there, but it might just be the sharp edges. And careful of this sort of blockiness here, unless that's the structure of the model perhaps, but it looks a bit too sort of octagonal, I think, in this case. Yep, that looks like 8 sides. Yes, very sharp along here. We've only got a tiny slither of this river, which maybe detracts a little bit. I'm not sure. I quite like these elements. That's a nice texture, isn't it? You know, they obviously got a lot of skill in the texturing, so that's really great. These palm trees, you get away with it, and they're nice, even though they haven't got a lot of shadow down that side. You get away because they're in the distance. They're a bit blurry as well. The integration of the mountain into the scene looks very good. That's not an easy thing to do, getting that right and the construction of it right. So really well done on that sense. I'm not sure about the camera being such a wide angle. There's sort of weirdness to it for me, but it could just be a preference. And that's something worth thinking about for everybody, is looking at photography and how do photographers set up construction, because that's in a sense all they've got is construction and lighting. Well, a camera kit as well, but generally all cameras are pretty good these days. So their skill comes down to lighting and shot construction. So they're very good at it. So look at their skills and try and mimic them. Anyway, let's keep going. Howling Cow. We've got the Old West. Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that sort of pixelated art style. This is very interesting. I'm trying to think how you've made it, because it seems obvious that it's a 3D model. I'm assuming. Maybe I'm wrong actually. It just seems so geometric with the perspective lines and everything. Oh, I'm confused. Is there any details? Is there any details? Is it to go in 2D or 3D? What am I supposed to do? We need some details. That's very interesting. Yeah, I'm assuming it's a 3D model that's sort of been converted into this sort of pixel art with this. In fact, no, were they asking questions about how to turn off anti-aliasing? And this is sort of an anti-aliased look, isn't it? I'm intrigued with this one. To be honest, I don't like the style, but that's a personal thing, I think, because I suppose it reminds me of the ZX Spectrum games of the past. If you're old like me, you'll know what I'm talking about. They had this sort of really washed out graphics, and they looked a lot like this. And and that graphic element I sort of didn't like at the time, even though I loved the games. All those sort of in fact I won't go into that, but so obviously it's nostalgic for me, but I never liked those sort of graphics. I think I don't like them because they're really flat, so we can't tell what's in the distance and we can't tell what's in the foreground. It's a classic problem, so it's really oversaturating the distance. Maybe that's more to do with the artistic skill aspect. We should, Howling Cow, you should have possibly desaturated the background again. I seem to be saying the same themes along this in this competition, so there's a possibility there that's the issue for me, rather than this sort of jaggedy edges. Interesting idea, very interesting idea. Works well. I would say this bit doesn't fit in. It's too blocky, whereas everything else is, looking at the sizes, these would be very, very big sort of piece of wood, I'm assuming, whereas these are thinner than thinner, so that sort of stands out as being wrong in some way, in my opinion. Again, being a little bit overly harsh in that one, I think, to apologise. It was very popular from people though, so well done. Oh no, Larcy, yes, he's been, or they have been chatting to me about this model. I like what you've done. The interesting thing is sort of in this alcove here, and I'm trying to remember, I feel like I've seen this before, so it is a model of a historic building, but it just doesn't quite look right from the images I've got in my head, because it's built and then stuck in, whereas I believe what I'm thinking of is in what this is based on, it's actually built into the rocks, is it? I probably should have looked that up before the competition. Now I'm just looking ignorant again. It's a very nice piece, lots of detail. I quite like the lighting, but it's a bit confusing in terms of how it's sitting in the background. That's the only thing. Love the minor details in here. It looks very much like a miniature somehow, and I'm not sure why that is. Perhaps it's in the level of detail somewhere. Maybe the camera angle as well, because we're looking at it straight on here, so we're about this tall. Maybe we should be, at this point, taking quite a low angle, maybe. Things to think about anyway. Hopefully I'm not being unfair, and hopefully I've got it right what it is as well. Nice piece though. Croc with a 2D piece. This is a good one as well, isn't it? Oh, that is nice. Croc with the croc. Yeah, it's got that sort of, is it sort of Aborigine art style? Let me see, yeah. Complete different 2D entry, historic art style with a little twist. Yeah, I suppose in terms of the theme isn't historic, but the art style is. That's a good idea. And yes, is it a historic art style? I suppose it is, isn't it? Yeah, and it's that sort of Aborigine. I'm assuming it's called art style. Anyway, hopefully I'm not being. Yeah, I probably am actually, because. Anyway, let's just forget that I don't know what I'm talking about. I like it. Excellent piece. Lots of details gone into this. It's interesting. The thumbnail, I feel, looks better than the final image, because we've got a little bit of distortion in the legs and things, and the arm looks like it's twisted. The shark's really nicely done. The crocodile, not so much. I feel like there should be a back leg here. But that is the style often as well, isn't it? Very sort of flat style. It is really well done, that piece. Really like it. I like the choice of the black against the light. They really stand out. So that's often an issue as well, isn't it? Getting your pieces to stand out from the background. And that's been an issue and a theme of the competition almost. Really well done with that one. Well done, Croc. Right, so we got Big Tricky, Tower Shields of Templar Knights. More, perhaps fantasy more than historic, but it is historic. It's historic fantasy, yes. That's nice work. I like your textures. Your textures are absolutely brilliant. Yeah, really nice. Did they say what they used for the textures? No. But they look very, very good. possibly a bit overly bumpy in places, but that's a minor point. They look very thick. I mean, if that was a tower shield, that would be heavy. That would be very heavy. You think of all that metal on there. So perhaps a little bit too thick, maybe. I should have done some history swatting up before the competition, but don't think tower shields were that heavy, because they did obviously have to hold them with one arm. Yeah, they look really great. I love the theme. In fact, I think someone posted about doing a mod in the collaboration thing. So maybe you want to get on some collaboration. Look in the collaboration channel. Someone was asking if someone would get involved with the Shadow of Mordor mod or something, and that would be suitable, I would have thought. Anyway, very nice. So we've got one from Mafa. This is Cairo. Oh, very interesting. Yep, very nice. I like the birds. There's minor touches like that can make a piece, because without the birds, imagine this piece without the birds, it would be very still, but they offer that movement, which really helps pieces. So think about those things. Mafa. And the people look a little bit like plastic models in the sand. I think there's too much depth of field. In fact, what is it? It just feels slightly wrong in the depth of field. I'm not sure quite why, and I might be being unfair again. Often the case with me. I love the Scorpion model. Look at that. That's just beautiful. Yeah, really nice. Good construction. Although we've possibly got a bit too much sort of blankness here. Very sharp at the edge here as well. So a bit of it, maybe a bit of a displacement map would have helped to just sort of break that edge up a little bit. That might be a good idea. It's a lovely piece. I like the colours as well. Yeah, it's got that sort of, I don't know, peaceful feel to it. It's lovely. Very good. Scorpion's really nice. I think if it were me, I'd like to get the Scorpion a bit closer to the camera, about this sort of big, this sort of size, because it seems so good. It looks like a photographer's only just managed to get the Scorpion in shot, sort of thing, whereas we've got the luxury of being able to place pieces. So I would have rather been closer to that Scorpion, make that the real feature, because it is the focus, isn't it? Literally the focus. Very nice though, like it a lot. Quite different to the other ones. No, that's unfair actually, but I do like it as a piece. So we've got Beeve. What's more historic than a nerdy head? A nerdy head, I suppose. Nerdy head. So many worlds seen and stories heard. Sadly, much got in the way, and I've just had to call it an end now. Maybe I'll finish sometime later. Okay, so this is like when you say nerdy head. So this is a nerd's room, or a nerd's sort of, I don't know, a nerd's homage to history. Yes, lots of historical items in here. Our police box is a bit small. If that's a picture on the wall, that's usually eye height, so the police box should be this big, or even taller. I'm a little bit unsure about why this bit's sticking out. This is a bishop, isn't it? And then there's a knight here, and I feel like they become one piece. So be careful about how you arrange your objects in your scene. It's really, really good. The texture on this one is really lovely. Pokeballs, lovely. Game Boy. It's all looking very nice. Yes, it does look unfinished. We've got sort of blank space here, and with this sort of collection, you kind of want almost like masses and masses of items in there, don't you? But I like where you're going with it. I think it will end up being a very good piece. Lovely work. The Game Boy may be a bit fat, a bit too thick. These minor points. Very nice. I'm not sure what this is, to be honest. But maybe that's my non-nerdiness, not knowing what these things are. I'm not a nerd, honestly. In fact, I don't know what that is either. That's Super Meat Boy, isn't it? And I do recognise that, but I don't enough to name it. I'm just looking silly now, aren't I? Anyway, let's move on. Well done, Beeve. Okay, Zadaro. Sorry, to Steam Trains, yeah. No time for the surroundings. Yes, so it's okay to put an image like that in the background, but yes, it needs some foreground elements as well. So yeah, running out of time there. It's a really nice model. I think it's let down a little bit by the lighting and texturing. It looks really flat. There's no sort of light on the railway track aspects, and this light here looks really overly specular. I suppose that's material more than anything. So maybe a bit of work on the material, maybe adding a bit of bump to break up that specular light, this sort of reflection that we see. And the highlights I feel like should be a lot harder, as in sharper, smaller. Really great model. It's a shame, more time I think needed, and it would have been exceptional. Yes, yeah, that's really good, but it's not sitting in the background because of these things. Yeah, and work on the lighting. You've got lights on at the front, and I can see why, because it makes it look more interesting. You can sort of work out that they're lights, but when it's either day or night, so choose one or the other. It's usually more fun at night, but then you highlight your model more with daylight lighting, so go for one or the other. Very good model though. I like the text as well across. That's not easy to do with textures, so a nice work. Very good. Mandalorian. No time for optimization. It's a very nice piece, but yes, it does need a bit of optimizing, like you say. That's sometimes the hardest thing, isn't it? To really make your things look real. Very, very hard. But there's some nice work gone into this. I think Gleb Alexandrov did a really good tutorial on spider's webs. These ones look a little bit haphazard. They're not quite in the right places. So this, for example, it looks like the edge of a clipping mask there as well. It's sort of slightly gone wrong. They look a little bit grey as well. Is that fair? The lighting just doesn't quite work. They're not, in fact, I don't think they're translucent enough. That's probably what it is. They're not translucent enough, so we're seeing too much of them. The watch is lovely. The dust needs a bit of work because it just looks very flat on top of the watch. It's not broken up enough. Dust doesn't settle. Well, am I being unfair there? I'm not sure. It just doesn't quite look right. There's something wrong about it. Yeah, maybe it's the contrast in the light in the dust. It's sort of it just looks very flat. That's the problem. The bricks are too small. Otherwise, the watch is really big. So always think about those aspects. Yeah, if you think of how small that brick's going to be, if a watch head is this big or this big, those bricks are this big. So very, very small bricks. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to read this. Whether I can understand what's going on there. The texture on the side here looks a little off as well. It just looks a bit overly bright. It's that finishing touches of the lighting that I think could make a huge difference here and give it that sort of real texture and substance. Very nice. Cloud 2017. Really enjoyed making this car. And it is a good looking car, well done. Shiny wheels, or are they bumpy wheels? They look like they're reflecting the ground. So thinking about basically your modelling skills are fantastic, but your texturing skills is where you need to start working on. I would want to do some more texturing, practicing, and then come back to this model because it deserves some brilliant textures because it's a brilliant model. So it's sort of very uniform. We've got this sort of plasticky look all the way across. So looking up car paint, that sort of thing. Should it be sort of metallic with a clear coat finish, that sort of thing. And then the rubber material for the wheels and the background. Needs a lot of work because it's quickly slapped into a background with these sort of purpley bricks, which it deserves more, I feel. It's a fantastic, fantastic model. Really nice. Love it. Well done, Cloud 2017. Fathom Mohammed Razi. when human became history. Interesting. It looks like you're trying to fit your ideas into the title. So it's the future history. Interesting. It's a great model, and it's a great construction, great piece. For me, it doesn't really hit the historic, but it's good fun. I like the way you've set up your environment. It looks really good. And sort of thinking about, so you've put light, sort of emission on parts of your edges. Is this done in Eevee? It's sort of got that Eevee feel. It's sort of blown out here. Yeah, and it's quite sort of hard. It hasn't got that cycles softness. So yeah, I like it. And yes, the person is working. Are they working? I feel like they should be walking forwards or something instead, sort of coming towards us. The pose maybe needs a bit of work. I'm pointing out minor things now because it's a very good piece. I like it. Well done. I suppose also it's worth pointing out this sense of perspective is very good. We've got darker things in the foreground, lighter things in the background, and we're slowly, gradually going into the distance. It's got that depth to it, and that's what other pieces have missed so far. Prehistoric from Javed Akhtar. Thank you for your offer, Javed, by the way, of collating the pieces. I was a bit sort of late to your post earlier, but Javed offered to collate all the pieces so they didn't have to be sort of rendered out in this naff sort of screen capture way. So I do apologise. It's a naff way of doing it, but it's quickest for me, so I can get on to other tutorials and all these other things as well, but still give feedback, which I hope you appreciate. Anyway, thanks, Javed. This is nice. I like this. I like this a lot. Yeah. The grass is a tiny bit uniform, so they look all the same height, and they look all the same shape. Ideally, get about 4 or 5 different grass models and spread them about. Then it won't look so uniform. Love this fern. I like the depth of field as well. The model looks a tiny bit plasticky. That's always the problem with dinosaurs. I find it really hard not to make them look like plastic. It's a very frustrating piece. They've got sort of shiny skins, but there's that subsurface scattering which you probably want to use that gives it just a bit of softness that works. I think that's what it is anyway. I could be wrong. This rock looks a tiny bit sharp in places and then soft in other. No, that's not fair. No, forget what I said there. The trees again, a bit uniform. Although that one, no, they're just sort of rotated. Choose a couple of trees, and they're a bit too symmetrical in their placement. Try and frame your item, so maybe a tree that sort of curves up here, and then a tree a bit closer here, and maybe a foreground element here, and would really get some depth. These are minor points because it's a fantastic piece. I really like this one. Maybe one of my favourites. Oh, touch and go. Good depth, well done. With both the depth of field and the lighting. And I like the light streaming through there. There's a lot going for this one, a lot of work gone into it as well. But that is the only thing. Just in terms of the construction, very symmetrical at the background. Can we frame it with some sort of foreground elements, sort of big trunk of a tree there or something like that? Would be even better, but it's very good. Well done. And very popular as well. Fatima with the bunny. I do like Fatima's work. She's got great style, and this is no different. It's very good. Yep, love it. This is an interesting idea because the compositing is something that we don't touch upon much, but it's so important that you take your 3D pieces into something like Photoshop. If it's just a still render, as it were, so you're turning it into a 2D piece in a sense, aren't you? Then do some compositing, take it into something like Photoshop. And here we've got some sort of old film grain over the top, so it looks like an old film, hence historic. We've got the frame around it, nice idea there. I think the white is a little bit off-putting though. The white is where our eyes are drawn, and so it detracts very slightly. Possibly black would have been better actually, and then we would have really highlighted the frame. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I love the style. I love this sort of lead samurai, probably by the looks of things, just from the style of the buildings and things. The samurai bunny. The bunny's appearing everywhere, and it's a good bunny, so it's well worth putting everywhere. I'm not so keen on the buildings. They're a bit too blocky, and I'm not recognizing the sort of Japanese style of building, so maybe that's my historical unawareness or ignorance, but I don't think the roofs were like this. Were they? They just seem a bit blocky and uniform, and they're very rigid, so should there be some sort of fall off slightly, so they dip maybe, and very sort of straight lines everywhere, possibly losing its verisimilitude, as we call it, which is the realism and believability of a shot, even though it's got bunny rabbits in. But hopefully you know what I mean. The bunny rabbits obviously are fake. They don't exist, well, in this form. But to make it seem more real, try and make the other objects seem real. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, these are really minor points, and it's a lovely piece. I really like it. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Oh, now this is a nice one. So this is based on Gloster Meteor, the first RAF fighter jet. Didn't know that. From Dowie. And it's very nice. Yep, I like it a lot. That's interesting because it's strange where my eyes were drawn, and in this case it's a very flat image. This is the lightest bit, but my eyes weren't drawn there. My eyes were drawn into the text. And then I went across and I looked at this wheel for some reason, and I think the wheel looks out of place. Again, a good model, so don't be annoyed at me for pointing out these minor things, but this wheel is a reflection, and it looks like the actual wheel of the plane. Obviously this is what the wheels look like, then the reflection. So where you've framed your model, you need to either go up to hide that wheel or down to show that wheel, because it looks like the wheel's sticking out of the jet engine, and therefore confuses the viewer's mind. Perhaps as well, the background, working on the background. I know that seems pointless because all your work should be on this model because that's the highlight. In that case, cut out the background altogether and just focus on the model, and do sort of like a couple of renders from different angles as well. Would be better than putting a not so great background in, and I think that goes for a few other people as well. Yeah, just slapping in a background so it looks like it's sitting somewhere is better to leave it out. Always give a floor because that's important to anchor it, but don't feel like you have to put a background in for the sake of putting a background in. That's the only thing that lets it down, weirdly. I mean, possibly the shape here, it sort of curves inwards, and it needs to be sort of more integrated, sort of flatter across here. These are really minor points, aren't they? But really nice. I love the model. I like the texturing as well. Brilliant. So that was Dowie. Then we got Spectrus_San. Samurais and manga is a big part of Japanese history. Oh, that's nice. Oh, I love that. Oh, this is very interesting actually. I hadn't noticed this one because I looked through them obviously when they come in, and I haven't noticed this one, so this is really interesting to me. Nice idea. It's a nice idea, that. So I like the way you've cut it off because that gives it that sort of comic book, graphic novel, manga style. I like this pose and this pose seem a little bit out, but this pose is lovely, and the way it's integrated into the scene looks really good. But yeah, it's the poses on these. They've lost their sort of dynamic look, and then you put these sort of lines in to make it look more dynamic. With dynamic, the sort of movement and the excitement of it. But in this case, yeah, it's lacking that movement, just a touch. The trees with a white outline, is that working for me? I'm not sure. haven't looked at sort of manga for a while actually. I used to sort of love it, but I don't really remember any sort of white outlines like this before. Like this makes sense, but this doesn't. I really like it, but I can't put my finger on it. I think maybe the trees are looking a bit too sort of uniform. It's a tough one. It's a tough one to point out what it is. Really nice idea. I like the way you've broken it up and integrated the two. Very clever idea. Maybe a little work on the textures here and the textures of the trees. They look a bit overly saturated in terms of the green. Love this model. Did you make it yourself is the question, or is that a stock model? Because you made it yourself. It's really lovely, excellent. If it were me, actually, I would have want to focus on this more. I see the idea, or maybe just cut that up into the same style. Really clever though, really clever. Nice. Another submission from Aaron16.1. So this is the 3D submission. The Roswell, 8th of July in 1947. That's a cool piece, that is. Yeah, I like that. Interesting. The models. It's really good. It's getting that low poly style to really work, and it's often down to simplicity. I mean, if you look at all the blank space everywhere, but you think, oh, but there's blank space, you need to fill it. Well, actually, in this case, no. That sort of minimalist look is really working well. Love the little aliens that have crashed, and the dogs, and the sort of depth of field as well. These things look really small, like they're a little tiny model. I feel like the base is way too big though. It detracts, in my opinion. I'd much rather see a smaller base, I think. Yeah, maybe there's something that just doesn't quite work, the base. The rest, it's really great. Love the idea, love the style, love the composition in terms of the makeup of the model. I'm not so sure if I like the composition in terms of the angle of shot. I might want to bring my camera around that way slightly more. Yes, and have them looking down the hill, down a slope, and then we've sort of got that construction a bit more. I really like this though. Yeah, I feel like the way it's been presented in the final finished piece doesn't work as well as the model itself. It's quite a tough thing, really, getting that right. I'm struggling to think what I would do to the base though to make it better. So comment below with your ideas. I really like it though, really like it. Now we've got Dr. Messiah. We've got here. This is looking good, very nice. We've got some very sharp lines down here. I suppose that's fair enough because it's low poly. Can you see what I mean? This is interesting because we've got a low poly piece and then we've got very soft lighting, which I think works a bit better than the really harsh lighting we had from Jost. Was it Jost? I think it was Jost. No, I'm saying that wrong. There was someone who did the low poly earlier. Sorry about that. I've forgotten who it was. I like the fog aspect because we've got real depth. Can you see that sort of depth that we've got? And the lighting's soft, it's very nice. I think though that the lighting is too soft because do we get fog like this in the Wild West? Does that happen? That's what feels wrong about it because I might be completely wrong here. Oh, my dog's going crazy. Right, I'm going to have to pause there, aren't I? Sorry, I had to do a quick pause there. Someone at the door. Yes, in terms of the lighting, so we've got fog in the Wild West, in the sort of deserty landscape, and I'm not sure does that happen. You would have soft lighting if there's that much fog. I think if you're going to sort of add sort of volumetrics to create an atmospheric effect, like going off into the distance, then a little bit less than this, and that would have been perfect. I think. I think, because I'm never quite sure of these things because I haven't been there myself to know what the conditions are like. But I'm thinking of old films, they're very rarely like this. They're more really hard sunlight, generally speaking. I like the time of day, the sort of low sun, that's a good idea. I feel like this is just a bit too sharp. I know it's low poly, but it still feels a bit too sharp across the top here. So we've got these really angular lines here. Maybe that's the angle because it's a bit flat. Maybe we need it to be a bit lower down with the camera, so it's got a more, it sort of breaks it up. There just seems a bit too much white space up here compared to the rest of the composition. Again, that could just be opinion. I really like this piece though. Another piece that I really like. This is getting very tough. I'm starting to worry actually about my decisions in a bit. I'm just looking at the time and how long I'm going on for again. So Frank Drevin, what have we got here? I do like Frank. He comes up with some brilliant stuff. This is good. This is good. He's desperate to win one. Well, he makes out that he's desperate to win one. Probably joking, but maybe he is getting really annoyed at me. I'm not sure. This is nice. It's got good depth, clever in terms of the way the fire is created, but we sort of look out into the distance so we know it's a cave. The cave paintings are fantastic. They look a little like they've just been slapped on as a texture. And they're not following the bump and contours of the cave. And it's unusual to see cave art of the Flintstones, but I'm pretty sure it does exist. So well done, Frank, for that piece of history. I like what you've done there. The fire's nice, isn't it? The fire's pretty clever. We've got some sort of artifacting here, but that could be the compression of what do you call it, Discord and stuff. It's very nice. Let me think. I feel like the cave. No. I was going to be harsh there. I like the way the cave sort of circles around here, it frames the image, but there's something about the material. What is it? No, I'm probably being over harsh there actually. Maybe it's just sort of my preference. I don't know, I feel like it's sort of a bit flat here and it's one mesh, which sounds a bit silly, but there's nothing breaking it up. I feel like when you go into a cave, not that I've been in many caves recently, but they're broken up with sort of dirt on the bottom and then rocks that stick out, and we're missing that element perhaps. It's a clever idea actually, because the way it's lit and the way we then highlight the artwork on the wall, which is obviously then a comical idea. It's quite clever, it's quite subtle really. So we see the light here, and then we see the cave paintings. I was expecting the cave paintings because I saw the title earlier. I didn't actually look closely at the piece though. I try not to look too closely because then it ruins the surprise in a sense, doesn't it? And in this case, the lighting from the fire lights this up very nicely, so it gives it that subtlety that you notice it quite late, which is a clever idea. Construction wise, maybe we need to come in here a bit more, because there's a lot of blank space here which doesn't help. Sometimes it helps, but in this case I don't think it does, because all our construction is on this half. I'm worried I'm being too harsh on this. I like the water there, that's a good idea. But yes, it's missing a foreground element here, a rock or something, to break this area up, in my opinion. I like it though. It is a contender, actually. It is a contender. Robo-stache. Very good. Oh, look, that naughty, you're late. 6:20 today. I'm going to let you off. Anyway, let's have a closer look. It's very good. You see, now this is nice in terms of, so the model's very good. Don't place it in a background that doesn't work. It would have detracted. So well done for not doing that. And 3 lots of it so I can see it from different angles. I think that's a good way of showing off. If you're just doing an individual model, show it off like this. But I would have liked to have seen the floor. It just anchors your piece and helps to sort of like I say, anchor the construction a bit, but it's really nice and it's laid out nicely. So in this case, maybe it's not necessary. I like your bone material. It's very good. I feel like it needs a bit of yellowness on the horns if we're sort of being really the next step, and the teeth. They have that sort of yellowness, gnarly sort of in the crevices as well. Yeah, so get your cavity map and put some yellow, almost dark browns as well. Sorry, light browns in there to sort of where the crevices are. Would have been even better. The model itself is absolutely exceptional, and yeah, it is just down to that texturing, which is not, because obviously the bump in a sense is sculpted, isn't it? So it is just the texture needs a tiny bit of work. Really good, really good from Robo-stache. And then we've got Matthias, or previously 2Ks 15. So let's have a quick look. I have seen this already. It's got some creepy sound. I don't know whether you can hear that, whether that's coming through. So I looked at this and I thought, is this historic? I don't know. Where's the history? Are we in a weird time machine? I don't know. You come up with the weirdest stuff for tires. I'm assuming these are historic characters that are coming across the screen. And there's sort of like a foot growing out of someone's tail there. And that classic piece of history there. I'm not sure how this is historic, but it's very interesting. Okay. Indecisive perhaps about what I should do. Simpler sequence due to not having time. It is a bit late as well. 7 o'clock today. Yes. Is it historic? The models, it's a good idea sometimes to reuse your models, but you're probably overusing them because they've been in every single competition, or maybe that's a theme. And actually Fatima's done it with her bunny, so I think that's fair enough. It's tricky to know how to criticize that because it doesn't quite meet the brief. That would be my thoughts on it. It's a very interesting piece though, and I like your weird, wacky style. Well done. Okay, I've got to make a decision now, haven't I? So I'm going to start with a 2D because I think there were only 2 pieces of 2D, although there was sort of a 2D with Spectrus as well, wasn't there? I'm just going to go through thinking about the 2D work. So Croc, a very nice one, very nice one. And then there was, as well, up the top here, Aaron 16.1 with a really nice one as well. Yeah. Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it? This is very nice. This is very nice. But I think Croc edges it for me. Yes, I can't put my finger on it. I hope it's not just a preference thing. I hope I'm sort of thinking more about the sort of skill that goes into it, as well as the composition and the idea. The idea is very good for Aaron 16.1, but I feel like Croc just edges it. Maybe it's the style, and I think it might be a preference, so I do apologise. It shouldn't be about preference, but I just prefer this as a piece. So my apologies to Aaron 16.1, and my congratulations to you, Croc, if you're watching. A fantastic piece. I really like it. It's good, actually. We've had 2 submissions for the... I'm not missing anybody for 2D, am I? I hope not. Yeah, so we've had 2 submissions, but they've both been really good, so I'm happy about that. It wouldn't be so good if they were not so good submissions. Am I making sense? Anyway, so the 3D, I'm going to quickly scan through again. This is very tough. This is very tough. Wow, I can't think of a competition where pretty much all the entries are a very similar level, which is a good high standard. Excellent work, excellent work, excellent work, excellent work, crazy work but excellent, excellent work, excellent work. Sputnik was good. I like Scourge, that was it. It wasn't Jost, because Jost did the other one, yeah. It's Scourge. That's a really good one. It's a really good one. I know I was quite critical of it, but it was really good, so it's very tough. This was a good one as well from Huion. I did like this one, the way it integrated the scene. Good style, but not my cup of tea. I'm trying not to hold that against you. Huion Kamvas. Well done, Croc. Big Tricky was good. Maffa was good as well. I'm tempted with this. Tempted. There's some great stuff here. Great stuff. I mean, that was a great car. I like this piece, but I don't think it's historic. And Javid. There's lots of work gone into that. Oh no. Maybe I should look at the votes as well. What people have voted. I'm liking this one as well. I do like that one, and I'm liking this one as well. Oh man, you don't make it. And Frank, you're in the running, mate. You're in the running. Oh, this is good as well, isn't it? I mean, it's coming late. I know it's got only a few votes because it's sort of been late. I'm going to look at the vote. I'm going to look a bit at the voting as well. It's, sort of people who put thumbs up and stuff. See, that's got sort of 10. It's difficult to say because some people are thumbing up and some people are okaying, and some people could do both, you see. So it's not a good system. But I am going to bear it in mind. Lots of support there for Fatima, and that is a good piece. That is a good piece. There's a 16 there, you see, with an 8. This is very popular. There's 11 there. This has got a high one as well, but it just seems a bit unfinished. 7. Oh, it's got lots. It's got lots. Oh. Well, it's not making it any easier actually, because everybody's the same as me. You see that got lots of votes as well, didn't it? Lots of votes. Lots of votes. Yes, so people are actually agreeing with me. It's nice. I'm trying not to look at these too much. Now this has got quite a few, but they are lots of different ones, so it's difficult to know whether people are sort of voting separately, if that makes sense. Oh, it's tough. It's tough, isn't it? Lots of votes. And the earlier ones obviously are going to get a few more votes as people see them. Actually, Aaron, so maybe people sort of disagree with me there, but I suppose it's a bit earlier than Crocs. Hope I haven't disappointed people. And whoa, that's got loads of votes. But that came in the first, you see, so it does make a difference to what order and how many people have seen it, that sort of thing. So it's not a good system looking at the votes, but I am sort of trying to appreciate it. So there's Scourge. That would be another low poly one. I'm thinking of the winners from the past. No, I shouldn't think about the past winners. I should just go on merit. Maffa is definitely in the running. Javid as well. And Fatima is close as well. I do like Aaron 16.1s and Dr. Messias as well, and Frank's. Oh my goodness, this is really tough. I'm going to go for Javid. Yeah. I really like it. I still feel like there's a way to go with this, but there's a lot of work gone into it, a lot of detail, which I really appreciate. And the dinosaur is really good. It's really good. In fact, yeah, I'm happy with this. I think it is just that touch above the others in some ways. Yeah, I'm not explaining myself, but congratulations, Javid. That was a very hard decision for me. So well done to everybody that's entered. I appreciate all your entries. It's great fun going through them. I hope you're getting something from my sort of critique and criticism. I hope it's constructive as well. I do feel like I'm being a bit harsher at the moment. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for the next one yet either. So any ideas, please get on the Discord and write your ideas. And I'm trying to think, is there anything else to add? No. I'll decide on when the next competition is. Well done again to Croc and Javid. Well done to everybody. That was really, really tough. You made my life difficult. And sorry about my interruption in the middle as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly have, and I'll see you next time.